The estate of Thornwell Manor was the envy of 3 counties. A sprawl of roses and glass perched above the rolling green hills of Halebridge, it housed not just the wealthy Halburns, but generations of secrets that never made it past the iron gates. To outsiders, the Halburns were paragons of nobility, kind benefactors, patrons of the arts, flawless hosts. To those within the household, the truth was thornier. Evelyn Halburn had once been the jewel of that house. Adopted at 8 years old by Lord Bernard Halburn, she was raised alongside his biological son Lucian. Though the staff whispered about her origins, something about a fire, a pauper's bloodline, a dead mother, Evelyn had proven herself quickly. She mastered languages, archery, etiquette, and eventually gardening, transforming the estate's barren rear courtyard into a living sculpture of color and design. It was in that garden where she found her peace, where the air didn't judge her, where her hands could create instead of defend. Lucien had always been different. Charismatic, yes, dangerously so. But beneath his charm was a coldness that Evelyn learned to detect in the small things: a crushed beetle beneath his boot, a lie told too smoothly, a laugh that never reached his eyes. By the time they were both 18, Lord Halburn made a decision that would reshape everything. He named Evelyn as the heir to Thornwell Manor. She built it with her hands, he told the gathered lords. She brought life to dead soil. What Lucien inherited by blood, Evelyn earned in sweat. Lucien said nothing at the time. He toasted to her with a smile. And that night, Evelyn's world burned. The fire started in the West Wing, the library where Lord Halburn often slept during late readings. By the time the servants raised the alarm, it had already spread to the main hall. Evelyn awoke, coughing flames licking the corridor just beyond her door. She managed to escape battered and half-blind through a second-story window. Lord Halburn was found dead. So was the will, or rather it had vanished. The court inquiry found no foul play. It was deemed a tragic accident. Evelyn, now with no legal claim to the estate, was removed from Thornwell within days. She watched from the muddy road below as Lucian stood at the gates dressed in mourning black, a hand resting over his heart. But his eyes were laughing. She disappeared after that. Some said she sailed to the Eastern Isles. Others whispered she had married a merchant and settled far away. Thornwell thrived under Lucian's rule. The roses continued to bloom, but only in the front gardens. The back courtyard, Evelyn's sanctuary, was left to rot. Until one spring morning, nearly 10 years later, a woman arrived at Thornwell cloaked in green and gold, her face veiled beneath a wide hat. She was young but carried herself like a queen. She called herself Lady Varel of Lismere. She claimed descent from a noble family in the south. Her tongue was honeyed, her posture perfect. She spoke of rare plants, estate restoration, and the potential to turn Thornwell's gardens into a pilgrimage site for floral scholars. Lucian, now Lord Halburn, welcomed her with interest. He had grown more powerful, more cunning. His circle included barons, magistrates, and soldiers. But beneath his confidence, he had not forgotten Evelyn. That's why something about Lady Varel unsettled him. It was in the way she walked the halls as though she'd memorized them, the way she touched the iron gate latches without looking, the way she knew exactly when to pause to smile, to tilt her head as if mimicking someone he once knew. He ordered background checks. He received forged documents and glowing reports. He invited her to stay as a guest. She accepted. And beneath the estate's perfume and politics, the scent of something older began to rise. Memory. Revenge. Lady Varel's arrival at Thornwell was met with curiosity and subtle caution. The servants whispered behind hands, the nobles exchanged glances, and Lucien watched her with a wary smile, a chess player measuring his opponent's first move. The truth was, no one really knew what to make of her. Her knowledge of botany was encyclopedic, her manner impeccable. She moved through the manor with ease, as if the walls themselves bent to her will. Yet behind the bright emerald of her eyes there was something colder, a steady, unyielding flame. Lucien invited her to the grand dinner in the great hall, a lavish affair meant to showcase Thornwell's resurgence. He sat at the head of the table, clad in black velvet, the emblem of the Halburns embroidered in silver on his chest. "Lady Varel," he said, raising his glass, "your reputation precedes you. I trust you will find Thornwell worthy of your talents." She smiled, but her eyes never left his. "Lord Halburn, a garden is never truly owned. It lives as long as those who nurture it. I hope to honor the legacy here." Lucien chuckled softly, but the edge in his voice was unmistakable. Legacy is a delicate thing. It can be watered or poisoned. She inclined her head, taking the challenge without hesitation. That night, after the guests had retired, she wandered into the garden, the very courtyard Evelyn had once tended. It was choked with weeds, the roses blackened at the edges by neglect. Lucien's gardeners had left it to die. Lady Varel knelt among the thorns, her fingers tracing the scarred soil. The moonlight revealed a faint tattoo on her wrist, a thorned vine curling around a small bleeding heart. She whispered to the night, for every thorn a promise. Back inside, Lucien was restless. He prowled the halls like a predator, sensing a new presence, a challenge. He summoned his most trusted aide, Marek, a man as ruthless as Lucien but loyal beyond question. "We must learn everything about this Varela," Lucien ordered. "Who she really is, where she comes from, and what she wants." Marek nodded. "I'll have spies in the village by dawn." But Lucien's unease deepened. This woman was no ordinary noble or gardener. She moved with the confidence of someone who had once been cast out and was now returning. The next days passed in a slow dance of subtle power plays. Lady Varel hosted small gatherings in the garden, inviting local herbalists, artists, and scholars. Her reputation blossomed beyond Thornwell, drawing whispers of admiration and envy alike. Lucien watched as the estate's energy shifted. The nobles who once pledged loyalty to him now hesitated, drawn by her quiet strength. One afternoon, Lucien confronted her in the library. "You've come here to claim something that isn't yours," he said, voice low and sharp. "The estate, the name, the legacy." She met his gaze steadily. "I've come to reclaim what was stolen." His eyes narrowed. "And what would you have me do?" "Bow and surrender." She smiled, a flash of steel beneath the silk. "No. I want you to understand the price of betrayal." Lucien laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "You speak of betrayal as if you know it. You were a child when you left. Forgotten. Forgotten," she repeated. "I remember everything." Outside the manor, the first buds of spring broke through the earth, and beneath the surface the roots of vengeance began to tangle. The days following the confrontation in the library were heavy with tension. Thornwell Manor seemed to hold its breath, as if sensing the storm gathering beneath its ancient stones. Lucien's suspicion grew like a slow poison. He tightened his circle, instructing Marek to infiltrate every corner where Lady Varel's influence spread. But the deeper Marek dug, the more elusive she became. Lady Varel moved through the estate like a shadow, seen but not caught. She charmed the gardeners, won the loyalty of the cooks, and spoke in quiet words to the stable hands. Her presence was a quiet defiance that no amount of intimidation could shake. One evening, Lucien found himself wandering near the back courtyard, drawn by an inexplicable urge. The garden was transformed. Where once there had been only death and decay, now bloomed an eerie beauty. Roses black as midnight curled around silver trellises, their petals shimmering with dew that sparkled like drops of starlight. Vines of nightshade entwined the stone benches. The scent was intoxicating and dangerous sweet, with a hint of something bitter beneath. In the center stood Lady Varel, her hands tracing patterns in the air as if weaving the garden itself into a spell. Lucien stepped forward, voice sharp. "This place, it's unnatural." She turned, eyes gleaming with quiet fire. "Beauty and danger have always walked hand in hand at Thornwell. Is this your way of showing power?" "No," she said softly. "It is my way of reclaiming a birthright. You took everything from me, Lucien. My family, my home, my name. Now I take back what is mine." He laughed, though the sound was hollow. "You speak of inheritance, but you have nothing to claim." Her smile was slow, deadly. "Nothing. Look around." She gestured to the garden, then to the folded parchment she pulled from her satchel. It was a deed, old and signed, bearing the mark of Lord Bernard himself. "This is the original will, the one that names me heir, hidden away just as the fire was set to silence the truth." Lucien's face paled. "You lie. Would I come here if I did?" Before he could answer, Marek approached, breathless. "My lord, the villagers speak of a woman who tends a garden like no other, who carries the fire of the Halberns in her veins. There is talk that the estate is no longer yours alone." Lucien's fury ignited. "Find out who she is. I want her roots torn from this land." But Lady Varel raised a hand. "Threaten me all you want. I have survived worse than you can imagine." That night the manor was alive with whispers. The servants debated loyalties. The nobles weighed alliances. The garden's strange flowers gleamed in the moonlight like watchful eyes. And beneath the soil, secrets stirred. Lady Varel spent hours alone tending the plants that had become her allies. She mixed herbs and powders, whispered names long buried, and watched the soil for signs. Her plan was no longer just to claim Thornwell. It was to destroy the man who had stolen it, to unmake Lucien Halburn petal by petal. Winter crept over Halebridge like a silent predator blanketing the hills in frost and shadow. Thornwell Manor stood firm against the cold, its stone walls a fortress for secrets and schemes alike. Lady Varell's grip on the estate had tightened. Though she remained a guest in name, her influence was undeniable. The gardeners worked in quiet reverence, planting strange new blooms, whispered to hold hidden powers. The servants, once loyal only to Lucien, now listened when she spoke. Lucien, sensing the shifting tides, grew desperate. His public face remained composed, but behind closed doors, rage and fear warred within him. One evening in the dimly lit great hall, he confronted Lady Varell once more. "Enough games," he spat. "Reveal yourself. Who are you truly? Why have you come back after all these years?" She met his gaze without flinching. "I am Evelyn Halburn, the daughter of Lord Bernard Halburn, the rightful heir of Thornwell." He laughed bitterly. "A ghost story to frighten children." She stepped forward, voice steady. "I am very real, Lucien, and I have come for what is mine." The room seemed to tighten around them as if the very air awaited his response. Lucien snarled. "You think you can take Thornwell from me with your tricks and illusions? I am the lord here. The power belongs to me." She smiled, a slow, dangerous curve of her lips. "Power is a garden," she said softly. "It must be nurtured, tended, or it will wither. You starved this place of love and kindness. You fed it with fear and lies. Now watch it bloom." That night a cold wind swept through Thornwell, carrying with it the scent of bitter herbs and smoke. The next morning Lucien awoke to find the library ablaze. Flames devoured the shelves, swallowing centuries of knowledge. The fire brigade worked frantically, but the damage was done. Lucien's fury knew no bounds. He ordered a search for the arsonist, but found only a single calling card, a black rose left on the doorstep. Lady Varell appeared calmly in the hall, her green eyes shining. "You wanted to see what I'm capable of," she said. "Consider this a warning." Lucien clenched his fists. "You've started a war." "No," she replied. "I've begun justice." Days passed with escalating tensions. Allies shifted, accusations flew like arrows. The estate felt like a powder keg ready to explode. Lady Varell used every tool at her disposal. Whispers to noble houses, secrets uncovered in dusty ledgers, and the loyalty of those who had suffered under Lucien's rule. She revealed hidden debts, illicit dealings, and betrayals that made Lucien's name stink beyond the borders of Halebridge. Faced with ruin, Lucien's bravado cracked. In a final desperate move, he summoned his guards and stormed the garden where Lady Varell worked late into the night. But she was ready. The garden was no longer a place of beauty alone. It had become a fortress of thorns and shadows. Vines twisted and curled at her command, a living barrier. Lucien's men hesitated, faltering in the maze of brambles that seemed to move of their own will. Lady Varell stood at the heart, calm and unyielding. "Leave," she commanded, "or face the consequences of your cruelty." Lucien realized then that the woman who had returned was not just a survivor, but a force shaped by years of pain and sharpened by vengeance. And the game was far from over. The frost that blanketed Thornwell Manor melted slowly, but the chill in the air lingered. The estate's halls were quieter now, the tension thick enough to choke on. Lucien's power was crumbling, his alliances fraying like old rope. Lady Varell moved with purpose, weaving her plans like the intricate patterns of her garden's vines. She had waited years for this moment, the reckoning that would see justice bloom from ashes. In the grand hall, a council was convened. Lords and ladies, merchants and magistrates all gathered to hear the truth of Thornwell. Lady Varell stood before them, her voice steady as she unveiled documents, witness statements, and secrets long buried beneath the manor's stones. She spoke of her father's murder, the forged will, and Lucien's betrayal. Her words were sharp thorns piercing the veil of lies that had shielded Lucien's reign. Whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs to gasps, and gasps to demands for accountability. Lucien, once the master of this court, found himself cornered. His defenses crumbled beneath the weight of evidence and outrage. In a desperate bid, he tried to sway the assembly with promises and threats, but the damage was done. The final blow came when Marek, his once loyal aide, stepped forward, voice trembling but resolute. "I was blind to the truth," Marek confessed, "but I will no longer serve a man who betrayed his own blood." Lucien's expression twisted in rage as he realized his fall was inevitable. The court decreed that Thornwell Manor would be restored to Evelyn Halburn, rightful heir and guardian of the estate. As the assembly dispersed, Lady Varell felt the heavy chains of the past begin to loosen, but her journey was not yet complete. That night, beneath the blooming roses of the restored garden, she awaited Lucien. He approached, bruised and broken eyes burning with spite. "This isn't over," he spat. "You may have won the land, but I will take your peace." She met his glare without fear. "Peace is a garden, Lucienne. It grows from forgiveness or withers in bitterness. You choose which you will be." He lunged forward, but the garden responded. Thorns erupted from the soil, wrapping around his arms and legs, holding him fast. Lady Varel knelt beside him, whispering, "Let go of your hatred. Let the garden heal." For a moment, Lucian struggled, then stilled. The dawn broke over Thornwell, golden and pure. Lady Varel stood a new ruler, not just of land, but of legacy. Her revenge was complete not through destruction, but through reclaiming what was rightfully hers and nurturing it back to life. And in the heart of Thornwell, a garden of thorns blossomed into something beautiful. The first light of morning spilled gently over Thornwell Manor, illuminating the gardens with a soft golden glow. For the first time in years, the estate felt alive, not just in its blooming flowers, but in its renewed spirit. Lady Varel, now known by her true name, Evelyn Halburn, walked slowly through the garden she had nurtured back from ruin. The roses, once blackened by neglect and betrayal, now burst forth with color, crimson white and blush pink, each petal a testament to resilience. Lucian Halburn sat in the great hall, his wrists still marked faintly from the thorns that had bound him the night before. Defeated and broken, he watched quietly as servants moved about their duties, no longer whispering his name with fear, but with indifference. The court had stripped him of his title and lands. Yet Evelyn did not seek his ruin, but his redemption. She believed a garden was more than just a place of beauty. It was a place of growth, of healing. A messenger arrived one afternoon bearing word from neighboring estates. Many offered alliances and pledges of support inspired by Evelyn's strength and fairness. The estate was no longer just a symbol of power, but of hope. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn began rebuilding not only the manor's walls, but its community. She invited villagers to tend the gardens, offered scholarships to local children, and established a sanctuary for those who had suffered injustices. One evening, as twilight settled, Evelyn found Lucien in the garden. He stood silently, eyes tracing the paths she had forged, the blooms that now thrived. "I see what you've done," he said quietly. "This place, it's more than I ever imagined." She smiled softly. "It's not too late for you, Lucian. The garden welcomes all who choose to grow." He nodded, a flicker of something new in his eyes, remorse, perhaps hope. Together they stood beneath the archway of roses, the scent of blossoms mingling with the cool evening air. Evelyn's journey of vengeance had come full circle, not in destruction, but in renewal. For a garden of thorns, when tended with patience and courage, could bloom into a sanctuary of light. And so Thornwell Manor lived on, not as a monument to betrayal, but as a testament to the power of forgiveness and the enduring strength of roots deeply planted.